records are now open. I'm actually being shown, and it came up right away, so I'm thinking it must be kind of important. You're a little girl, but you're on a planet, not Earth, and it's in a far off place. It looks like, now the dolls I mentioned before in the last reading we did together, they're actually from a different universe. So they're kind of, I think, a kind of a mirror, or an alternate universe to the one that we're in right now. And they're an ancient race. They do look quite Nordic. Some people say they're the descendants of Lyrans, but the records are showing that they're not. They're actually kind of a different race altogether. So there were some influences with some of these other star systems with the dolls. I'm seeing that you were a little girl and you were out in the field. I'm seeing you were picking flowers. What I'm seeing is there was a connection between you and the plant life. Like deeper than just you picking flowers, okay? There was like a very deep connection there. The reason why you were picking flowers was because you were gathering up certain herbs for your mother, who was using them to create like potions and tinctures and elixirs that will help with healing. So it's kind of interesting that this pops up. And what do you work in? You work in a company that deals with tinctures and, obviously synthetic ones, not, natural ones, but deals with, different products that's supposed to help heal people, okay? Yeah, so...
Yeah. And actually, that's one of my main skills that was in my star chart, was that I am a natural healer, and that's what I'm supposed to be focusing on while I'm here in this lifetime.
Absolutely. And that's why I think this was so important and why it came up in the records right away. They're showing you working with your mother and I think a group of other women. I'm seeing you were a little blonde-headed little girl, and all of these women look kind of Nordic. The environment looked similar to Earth, but there were some differences. I think the sky color was a different color. There was, I think, 2 or 3 moons. But I'm seeing with the sky color that it was more of kind of a greenish gold, which was interesting. And this was in such a far off place. This is where you originated from. So your story starts a very long time ago. You're actually a very ancient soul. And how you got to this universe, we'll kind of follow along and see what the records show us. So I'm seeing you doing this with your mom, and it was a small village, and it was kind of like, it looked very primitive, but it wasn't. These people are actually highly technologically advanced. They kind of evolved past the use of a lot of physical technology. A lot of their technology was more mental, which is kind of hard to describe. There was a movie I saw once that kind of, I think, was the closest depiction to how these people were. They were so advanced that they utilized a lot of telepathy and telekinesis in achieving the things they needed. They didn't really need starships because they were able to transport themselves to different places.
Right.
Yeah. So, and the movie I was thinking of is called The Green Beautiful. And it's a French subtitled movie, and it's about these people that they're obviously extraterrestrials, but they look human, and they live an idyllic life in their planet, but they're getting called to assist Earth, and nobody wanted to go except for one lady. And the only reason why she wanted to go is because I think her mother or somebody came from Earth, so she wanted to connect with, I think, that part of her heritage. And so she goes to Earth. They kind of like send her off in like a little, I don't know, it looked kind of corny, but like a little egg or something. And she ends up in France, and She doesn't speak the language. She's wearing really funky clothes that doesn't, and she's trying to fit in. And then all of a sudden, she meets some people, and she's able to connect with some of the earth people, and in the meantime she's helping them. They don't realize it, but she's helping them evolve. So it's kind of an interesting story, but just the way that planet was kind of reminds me a little bit of what I'm seeing with where you came from originally. So these people were so highly advanced that they didn't have the need for much machinery. They lived very simple lives. I'm seeing quite a bit of ceremony, and they like to create like different masks. It looks like that kind of represented different archetypes or beings, or it was a lot of ceremony, a lot of dance, kind of similar to Native Americans, but maybe a little different, more kind of a Nordic feel to it. And they were just very happy beings. Now, as you grew up in this very first lifetime, you became so advanced with your healing skills that you were being called to assist with other star systems, and it was a very far ways away, and you weren't really sure about it, but you thought it was okay. You wanted to be of service because that was the highest honor that you can bring upon yourself and your people. So you were kind of getting close to the end of your life, and there was some negotiations going on about, what you should do in your next lifetime. And I'm seeing that you agreed to incarnate again into a different system. So you didn't physically like transport yourself there. It was just that you were going to go through a Stargate to get into this universe and start doing your work. Now you are a very high dimensional being, so you were kind of more likely in light body or crystalline body form. So it was easier for you to, and you were going from like, I don't know, 6th, 7th dimension into, 6th, 7th dimension. So you came into the other alternate lives with all your memories intact. Okay, so it wasn't like you forgot who you were. You knew who you were. You knew where you came from, but you understood that you had to start over again in these alternate realities or these alternate timelines and dimensions. So, and it was kind of interesting, but you did it through, I guess, incarnation, not through physical space traveling. Okay, so now I do see that you went through a Stargate, and it wasn't Arcturus or Antares. I think it was probably some other Stargate I don't know about that connected your universe with this one. This was like in between lives. You were kind of processing yourself through this. I'm just seeing very high level beings. They had kind of a dark quality to them because the Stargate that I'm seeing looks totally different than what I've seen in Arcturus, and I've seen both those Stargates in the records. So each of them has a distinct look. This looks like more like a black hole, or I don't know, it's just like huge. You told these they were like the gatekeepers, and they were wearing like hooded robes, and they looked very dark. I mean, they didn't really have any discernible features. And they were asking you, why were you going through the gate? And you told them, of your mission, and you told them that you received permission from the council, I guess the council in Dahl, and they said, okay, okay, since the council agreed, we're allowing you to pass through. So it was you and I think a few others that was passing through. And at this point, I'm seeing that the very first place you arrived was Galactic Center. Okay. It was like you were at the headquarters. You were there to get your next assignment, and so you were reporting from the council in Dahl to this new council. So I'm seeing very, very, very highly evolved being, okay, that you were. Because you don't get the Galactic Center right away without being an evolved being, So what they were telling me is that you asked where you should go to next, and they said, okay, we need some new systems set up in Altair, and that was your very beginning incarnation in this particular universe, was in Altair. Altair, what I'm seeing, is kind of the seat of galactic government, if you want to call it that. I hate to use the word government, but it's kind of like where they set the laws, and it's kind of like where all the galactic referees that kind of keep an eye on things, make sure everything's done fairly.
They're in this galaxy.
In this galaxy, yes.
Okay.
So these are where all these. So these are some very high council, that are located in Altair. Now, there are some reptilians in Altair. However, they are part of the higher council. Okay, so these are individuals that have, I think, shifted to light and are part of this higher game, or this higher I guess, experiment that we're all kind of working within. So I think that's why they say, these Altarians have connections with the reptilians. They're not the draconian reptilians. They're more the ones that evolved, I think, past that. So I'm seeing in this lifetime, you assisted, I think, and it was because of the knowledge you brought with you from Dahl, that you assisted in some higher level I guess, healing processes, or some, it was kind of like you were setting the kind of the protocol for certain healing processes, or things that were supposed to be taught in other star systems. So you're coming in with this higher level knowledge. And because you came from a different universe, they wanted to have your input, because obviously you came from a different place and you had some knowledge of things that, weren't previously known in this galaxy. Okay, so I think that's what kind of set the course for you, as far as, what you came here to Earth to do eventually. But I do see an incarnation in Aldebaran, and the reason why you chose to incarnate in Aldebaran was because of, there was a Nordic connection there. They also had connections with the Dahls. I think some of them may have had some influences from Dahl society. And then I'm also seeing that you wanted to kind of understand what you were dealing with, as far as different cultures here in this part of this galaxy, or this part of the universe. So the Aldebaranians were space travelers. They were explorers. So, and you were just traveling to these different. You traveled to Sirius, to the Pleiades, to Arcturus, to all the places. And so you were just trying to get a rundown of what kind of disease, is out there, what is it that these beings needed, so you were kind of, I think, just kind of gathering information at the same time, also healing people, obviously. So you were doing like all this kind of, extensive level research into, all these different star systems. They're also telling me is that after the Aldebaranian, you spent like 2 or 3 lifetimes in Aldebaran, and then you decided to go back to Altair because you were bringing all this information with you to Altair. And Altair was kind of the seat of where everything was kind of set in place, as far as governmental systems, or the higher law, and and they were kind of like, I think, more neutral zone. They were the ones that kind of kept an eye on things that were kind of going on. And there was actually representatives from different star systems at Altair. It wasn't just Altarians. There was people from Arcturus, people from the Pleiades, people from Andromeda, that sort of thing. So they had different representatives from different star systems. Now I'm seeing that in this lifetime, that when you were back in Altair, that's when you connected with me, and that's why you and I feel this kind of instant familiarity with each other, like like we have this contract, or oh, I know you, kind of thing. I was a representative from Arcturus that was there for a while doing the same thing you're doing, except I was doing it more for knowledge and communications. You were doing it for health and healing. Okay. So we were setting like certain processes in place. And so what happened with you and me is that we had kind of a very similar assignment. We're here to act as referees, kind of make sure everything's done. And I think it's interesting that both you and I ended up in very regulatory career fields. It's kind of like, like we're kind of getting we're in the belly of the beast, seeing what's wrong with the systems, and I was in the military too, so talk about really messed up system, but yeah, I was just like, okay, I can really see what's wrong here. But so we're supposed to kind of set things right, as far as so we're kind of like system builders in a sense, or at least, we're way showers for, things to be done in a different way. So, but we have to kind of understand what we're dealing with, so that's why, I ended up in the career field I'm in, and you ended up, even though it's not really what we wanted to do, but it's just kind of like we had to get that understanding, so, with me, it took me a lot longer to get down there, because I'm still kind of trying to get out of it. But right now, what I'm seeing is that, now is a time for us to start setting the new systems in place, so, and I'll get more into that with you. I'm still kind of following the whole pathway to your lifetimes. What I'm seeing with you is, you had very few incarnations on Earth. I mean, like, I don't know. I think this may even be the first one. Let me check into that. Okay, no, they're saying that you did have an incarnation in Atlantis, and then you had, I think, a couple of others in kind of the more Nordic areas of Earth. Just kind of to understand kind of the Earth, the Earth culture and the Earth peoples. So you probably had about the same amount I had. I had like 4, maybe 5 lives on Earth. You probably had 4, maybe 5. So not very many. We were not caught up in the reincarnation cycle.
Okay.
Yeah. So that, you hear that a lot, like, oh, everybody caught up in the reincarnation cycle. No, not everybody. Some of us that were, star seeds, really specifically picked and chose the lives we want to incarnate into, and we did it for a purpose, so. And we did choose sometimes very difficult lives. It wasn't like we had it easy, it was. We're trying to better understand the human condition. So how better to understand the human condition than to lead very humble lives, so
Yes.
We weren't priestesses, or kings and queens, or anything like that. We were out there with the regular folk, what I'm saying,
Right.
kind of just trying to understand, the struggles that humans go through. And so a lot of us that came from a galactic center and from Altair and, those areas very close to galactic center chose very humble lives for a reason. Now, I am seeing in your very first physical incarnation in Atlantis, you were a scientist, okay? So, you were working not quite in, I would say, in an elevated role, but you were educated and, you worked a respectable position. And I do see you were female in that life. Now, in some of your other lives that were more in, I'm seeing mostly Nordic. I'm seeing, I think, one in the Celtic lands and then a couple in kind of Scandinavian areas. Now, your physical heritage, is it Nordic or English or?
It's mostly European.
Okay.
I want to say Eastern European.
Eastern, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that fits with kind of the Nordic theme too. So.
And it's interesting because on my genetic report it says 1% Scandinavian.
Oh wow, okay. Well, I do
and
see.
You just mentioned the Scandinavian.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. But yeah, I do see Northern European for you. Eastern, yeah, it could be Eastern because I see you in the steppes of somewhere close to Russia. You had a lifetime there. So it might have been Russia, might have been kind of the northern part of Eastern Europe. It's kind of hard to tell. This was before there was actually established, countries. So, but I do see you're wearing a bunch of furs and you're kind of like a shaman of some sort. Not very elevated, you're just there with the people trying to, be of service, to the people in your tribe. Yeah, from there, I'm seeing one incarnation in northern Americas, but more like northern. I'm thinking possibly early colonial times. And I'm seeing you were a man and you were kind of exploring. I think just kind of what they consider to be the wilderness, but it was kind of, I think, close to where you are now. Like they keep saying Finger Lakes. I don't know. That's more in New York, but it was north of the Finger Lakes. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like maybe in Ontario or somewhere in Canada, but this was like early, like in the 1700s, where they were just kind of, and I think you were probably, I'm guessing maybe a French colonist or, somebody that was colonial. And you were just kind of traveling, I think, just trying to see, what was out, that, might be inhabitable or. And I do see that there was kind of a scientific aspect to some of the travels you did because I do see you drawing pictures of plants and you would take samples of plants. So kind of as a fallback to your original doll life when you were gathering the plants, So I don't know. But you were drawing pictures. You were drawing these really detailed botanical pictures. I don't know if you have any drawing ability in this life, but you were doing that in that life. And I do see quite a bit of, yeah, they're just saying that, and you were kind of like doing this on your own because you just had an interest in it. It wasn't like you were part of a scientific team, that you were just kind of doing this because you were fascinated by how different, the fauna and the flora was in, from where you came from, So So you had kind of an interest in, these things. Now, when you went to school, did you take a lot of biology, or you probably had to?
I took a little bit of science. I mean, like, just your basic classes. I took biology, chemistry, physics, and then I did some social sciences as well. But um, it's funny. The only one that I really got into was physics. I didn't do well with either the biology or chemistry.
Oh,
I found it
interesting.
really hard and challenging.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's interesting that you enjoy physics, because I think that's kind of more in line with maybe where you originated from, which was from Galactic Center. So you like the understanding of how things work mechanically in the universe. So you've had a few lives on Earth, not many. This life is kind of your apex life. Now you are, I would say, kind of more tail end of second wave volunteer, maybe even third wave. So I don't know, you might get called back to Earth again. That's going to be your choice, though. That's going to, whatever you decided on your contract here. I do see a high probability that you might come back to Earth, but it'll be fifth dimensional Earth. So you'll be building new systems in fifth dimensional Earth, and I'm seeing new healing systems. Okay, it's no longer going to be called medical, because medical kind of has a bad connotation. So it's going to be much higher level healing systems. And then I'm also seeing that in this lifetime, you're here to mainly understand what's wrong with the system, but then you're also going to be called away from working within that system. So your days in the pharmaceutical field, when you might not be sad to hear this, is limited. Okay, so because I think you already know what's wrong with the system. So now, what your guides are telling me, your guides are these ancient doll and Altarian people. Okay, so I'm seeing the Altairs look pretty human. I mean, they were high vibrational, but they for the most part they looked human. The dolls had more of a they were Nordic looking, but they were like tall whites. They were very extreme, more extreme in their look. Like their hair was so blonde it looked white, and they had like kind of very fair features, very tall. I don't know how to describe them, except they are actually very beautiful. Like very similar to the Anshar, yeah. And sometimes I wonder if the Anshar has a connection to the dolls, like maybe they were descendants of them. Um, and and I think with a lot of these inner Earth groups, some of them were descendants of old ancient Lyrans, but some of them look even beyond ancient Lyran. They don't look like Lyrans. The Anshar is one of those groups. They look like they came from somewhere else. So,
right.
Yeah, so I'm thinking they might be descendants of ancient dolls that were probably traversing the universe and ended up on Earth or something. But yeah, they do not. But that's kind of how the dolls look like. They look a lot like the Anshar. They have kind of an extreme, very pale look about them. Very sculpted facial features. Kind of slanty eyes. The Pleiadians and the Lyrans have more almond-shaped eyes. These people had very slanty, like slits for eyes. Very beautiful, but kind of very very more extreme. And they were just very, kind of more of an extreme human look, maybe. But they didn't really have any connections with the Lyrans at all, which is interesting because originally I thought they did, and they really don't, and they just came from somewhere else. What I think happened, and let me check in with the records. Okay, what the records are showing me, and this is really super interesting. They said that when Source decided to split itself off, there was this group of Elohim that went to Lyra, and they started the whole Lyran races and everything. But there was other groups that went to different universes, and they also co-created in those universes. So there was a group that went to the universe where the dolls were. There was a group that went to another universe, and they all kind of started what I guess what they thought looked like themselves, which were more or less human type of beings, but they had variations depending on I guess the environment that they were being created under and things like that. Now, some of these groups advanced quite a bit, so they traveled, different places quite a bit. The dolls were able to transport themselves just mainly through thought. I mean, they were that advanced. So they didn't even really need starships. They were just able to transport themselves through that big Stargate I was telling you about that kind of looks like a big black hole, and with the dark beings, and then they just kind of processed themselves through that. Now what I'm thinking is that they were adept in using probably a Merkaba type system where they were able to build their own starship using just themselves and their energy, and that acted as, I think, a kind of a transportation device to get them to where they needed to go. But it wasn't like a physical starship. It was like they created through their own energy. So these are some very highly advanced beings. They were even probably more advanced than the Arcturians, and the Arcturians are pretty freaking advanced, So so they, these are pretty impressive, beings as far as their capacity for astral traveling and telecommunications and things like that. So anyway, so that's where you came from, and you and I connected in Altair when we were kind of setting up. So what this is telling me is that you must have been higher than seventh dimension. I'm thinking probably ninth or 10th at that time. We worked together during that time. So it was like when we connected in this timeline, it was like, oh yeah, I know you. It's like, oh yeah, that's my sister from Altair. So that's why my chart shows me coming from Altair, because that's where I was last. Okay, but you actually incarnated as an Altarian, because I mean you were so far from home. You just had to incarnate into, different body form that was more, I think, in line with what you were, experiencing in this universe, in this particular universe. And in that lifetime, you had a more, I guess, humanoid look, obviously, still, with some Nordic features, or some, I would say more fair skinned or lighter colored hair, and not quite as tall, not quite as elongated looking as the dolls, but more human, more I think just a physical shape, as a human. I do see that most of your incarnations were female, except for on Earth, you did choose some male incarnations. I think more for protection than anything else, because life can be very hard for women on Earth. and there were certain things you wanted to do, and you felt like you had a more opportunity to do that as a man than as a woman, especially in certain timelines that we were incarnating into. So, and I did the same thing. I had, I would say, more of my lives on Earth were as male than as female. So, so I did the same thing you did, just more for protection and more for being able to accomplish certain things that women weren't able to do, So anything I'm saying so far making sense, or am I really off? Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely. Especially because that was actually going to be one of my questions was the Atlantean connection. Because I've always felt a strong, like, undeniable, like, it's like almost like I know it. I've always known I have some kind of a connection to Atlantis, and I just needed to know what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were there.
I just put it together in my head because I'm like, oh, well, I know I haven't been on Earth that long, so how could I have had a lifetime way back then in Atlantis? But then when you just explained that it doesn't necessarily need to be like
cyclical, linear. Yeah, it wasn't linear. Yeah, it was.
Now, was I there? Was I there? Did I live during the time when Atlantis fell?
I think you did. Yeah.
Because I feel a deep sadness.
Yeah.
From that.
Yeah, you did. Like I said, we chose lives that were very difficult for a reason. I mean, it almost traumatic. I mean, or actually, some of them were really traumatic. So yeah, we chose very difficult lives, and because we needed to know what was going on, and so you chose to incarnate specifically in Atlantis during that time because you're actually reporting back to Altair, and Galactic Center. So because they were kind of wanting to know what was going on, on Earth, because there was some crazy stuff going on Earth, So what that tells me is basically your soul essence is higher galactic. It's higher, what I would call it higher galactic. And because you were likely ninth or 10th dimensional, you're likely angelic, as far as, I guess, your energy form. However, yourself and myself, we don't align, or we're not connected with the angelics that are assigned to this particular solar system. So we're not. We've worked with them before, but we're not of the same group. Okay, we're reporting from Galactic Center, so it's a different group of angelics. I don't know if that makes sense, but but it's just our we're such big souls that what's here right now for you and me is just a piece of what we truly are. Okay. So and I don't even know how to physically describe it in a way that makes sense, but it's like we're living other lives simultaneously, so we're almost like parallel souls. So you might have dreams sometimes, and I know I find this with myself, where you're kind of having a walk-in experience, where you're kind of temporarily walking into someone else's life to assist. You're there during crisis time, and then you step out when the crisis is over. Okay, so.
Yeah, that sounds extremely familiar, and I really can relate to that a lot because I often find myself feeling detached from everything, as though I'm just supposed to observe, and I don't feel. It's not that I'm insensitive, but I just feel like everything's happening around me, and I'm just supposed to witness it.
Yeah.
And I don't feel affected by it. I mean, I do to a little bit of degree, but because I'm like intuitive empath.
Right,
but
absolutely. Yeah.
I don't let it. I know how to compartmentalize, I guess. Like, I don't let it affect me and my emotional state and that kind of thing.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm trying to say?
I know exactly what you're trying to say. You're more of a galactic healer, so your role is to help heal people of all the karmic baggage and crap that they have carried with them throughout their various lifetimes. So we're talking about not just physical healing, but like overall spiritual soul healing, you know. So you're not only healing uh, physicality, although the physical healing will be part of the, you know, the benefit that they'll receive, but what you're doing is you're healing, I mean, stuff from their ancestral lineage. I mean, like way back. So I'm helping them remember their ancestral lineage. You're helping them to heal that. So I don't know if that makes sense. So so I do see you doing, you know, physical, maybe like energy type healing, you know, like that. You're going to start branching more into that. I don't know if that's an interest of yours, but so your role so far has been to understand the system that's broken. Okay. From there, I do see. Again, it's going to be kind of a process. I don't see you like deciding to quit your job right away because you are a Capricorn and Capricorns are very practical. But um, I do see you, getting more training in certain alternative healing modalities. I'm seeing very high level healing modalities. Reiki is not going to be enough for you. I mean, you might start off with Reiki, but you're going to be working beyond Reiki. I do see you working with botanicals, because there is that original connection from Doll that where you worked with plants. So I do see you maybe taking some, I don't know, botanical medical type classes where you're working with plants and maybe creating some new medicines that's going to be really helpful to people. And you are young, and like I said, I do see this as kind of being, I would say, probably a 5-year process where you're going to start getting your feet wet, learning, these different modalities. You're going to expand from there, and then you're going to start your own practice. Might be a side thing for a while, and then eventually, because you're so skilled, you'll eventually step into it full time. I do see you teaching others. I do see that you're a very effective teacher. You were that way in Galactic Center and Altair. You were teaching all of us, things that you learned, where you came from. So, so I just see just kind of a process towards working, stepping into your true role, which is to be a higher level galactic healer. So I don't know. Is it a lot? It's probably a lot.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. It's because I've been wondering what it is that I need to do. What step is it that I need to take to start making that transition actually happen?
Yeah, I would recommend taking like actual classes in these like workshops or classes or.
Do you see anything at all about me needing to do healing on my own body and chakra systems and things like that before I can actually be able to like learn and actually practice on others?
Yes, yes. You always, it's like physician heal like thyself. It's you always got to get your own, I think house in order before you can get other people's houses in order. So
Yes.
I don't know if that makes sense, but now I don't see like a whole lot of attachments with you. I think what the few that we had before we cleared out with the clearing, but I do see some chakras that are a little shut down or closed, and a lot of that's just from dealing with third dimensional living. That I'm seeing with you. You kind of struggle with root chakra and with I'm gonna say the next level, number 2, the sacral, I guess, or This is solar plexus up here, so it's a sacral. I'm also seeing some struggles with your throat chakra. Okay, so a little bit of blockages there. I don't see like a lot of the discordant energy attachments like you do with some other star seeds, those that particularly have been in Orion. I don't see that with you. I just see that you have a hard time staying grounded. It's just, and it's inherent to who you are. I mean, you're not even from this universe, so originally, so so I think sometimes that kind of detachment or disconnectedness, that's part of the non-feeling grounded. That I got to stay neutral, I got to stay apart, so I can kind of observe and see what's going on. But at the same time, you are, currently human, and it's good for us to stay grounded with Earth because Earth needs our help, and we are part of Earth as well. So I would say probably more grounding exercises would help.
Yeah. There's one question that I have about my daughter, Bailey.
Okay.
I'm curious if the records show anything about our connection that we have prior to this life now. Just curious if there's anything there.
I'm seeing Atlantis.
Okay. And was it a positive relationship that we had at that time there?
It started.
Or was there some karma involved?
There was some karma involved. Okay, and this is going to be hard to talk about, but because I'm getting some images, I'm trying to kind of make sense of what the images are showing me. But okay, I'm seeing that she was part of your family. She was actually your sister in that lifetime. And Atlantis was falling, and you were in a ship or in a boat of some sort, and you were trying to escape. And I don't think she really blames you, but somehow, I don't know, this is going to sound kind of weird, but somehow she slipped and fell off the boat and she drowned. And you guys were trying to save her, and I don't know why you weren't able to, but I think it was very rough seas. There was a lot of cataclysmic things going on. I'm seeing a lot of explosions, things that were, just a lot of noise, a lot of confusion. You guys got separated there for a while, and then she kind of fell off the side of the boat. It was dark, nobody could see anything, and you heard some screams, but by the time I think some men tried to swim out to get her, she already went under. So it was really kind of horrible. It was terrible. I hate sharing these kind of stories because they're terrible, but I don't think she blamed you, but I think to a certain extent, I think she was upset that maybe you didn't, you weren't paying attention or you weren't there for her or something. So I don't know if this kind of aligns with your relationship with her now, but there's.
No, it really does. Yeah.
Okay. There's some like I think karmic blame or something where she feels like you weren't there for her, or you abandoned her, or you neglected her. Okay, so so there was some of that. I don't. Yeah, I saw the it was just very chaotic. There was a lot of things going on. I think on an intellectual level during that time, she knew it wasn't your fault, but I think there was some like subconscious expectation that you should have been there, or something to that effect. So. So yeah, it was very tragic, very, very, very tragic actually. And I think the reason why you both chose to incarnate together in this lifetime was to try to work out that karmic tragedy, to kind of try to reverse it, so
Right.
so hopefully that'll happen. So so you can both put that. I'm finding in the records, with a lot of folks that have Atlantean, incarnations, that a lot of them came, it specifically chose to incarnate here in the United States to work out old karma. So, because there were some funky things that happened in Atlantis. So it was, and they had to choose like a country and a timeline where the technology was enough of a match to where it kind of matched what you experienced in Atlantis. So
Right.
so I
and
do.
it certainly does.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean,
corruption and greed.
Correct, and the greed, and yeah, it's like, yeah, this is like Atlantis all over again,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, woohoo, we get to go through this again. No, it's like, really?
I think that's why I'm so absolutely explains why I'm so intolerant of it.
Oh yeah, you just because we knew what happened last time. It was like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we're going down the same path again,
Right.
So yeah.
And I just try to, spread as awareness as I can to people who aren't awoken yet. Even if I sound crazy, I don't care. I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
Yeah.
you just want people to be aware of it, and that's all it takes is if people start asking questions and pushing the status quo. That's what's going to allow us to take our control back.
Yeah, absolutely.
One last question that I have, and I'll make it really quick because I know we're running out of time here.
Yeah.
But do I feel some sort of a connection with Egypt and the pyramids and all that? Like, do you see anything related to that?
Being Atlantean, what I've seen in the records is that a lot of the Atlantean survivors did end up in Egypt, and they started a new civilization there. So you were there in the very beginning of Egypt's history, when they were just first starting to build pyramids, but it was I think the pyramids are a lot older than our history makes them out to be. So
Right.
Yeah. The Sphinx definitely is a lot older and the Sphinx actually used to have a lion face or a feline face, not a human face. So I think everybody kind of knows that now. But yeah, it was during quite a few of the Atlantean survivors did end up in Egypt, and they started kind of a second Atlantis. Of course, they didn't call it that, but that's why Egypt was so highly advanced for its time, because they brought a lot of technology with them. And plus, they were getting a lot of help from star people, too. So, there was that as well. But they brought a lot of the technology with them from Atlantis. So it had definitely a different look. But like I said, I think they were just trying to create a new society and a new civilization. But definitely a lot of Atlantean overtones. Okay, so yeah. So yep. You were one of the ones that survived. You're fortunate. Your daughter slash sister during that lifetime was not one of the survivors. And she came here kind of to work out, I think, some of the, maybe that old karmic, tie that you guys had with each other. So maybe relinquish. I think her main role is going to be to forgive you and to forgive herself before she can move forward. And I don't know exactly. She's probably way too young right now to even understand that. But when she gets a little older, hopefully she'll be able to do that. So.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Debbie. It was absolutely wonderful, and thank you so much for your incredible work, and it's just beautiful.
Thank you.
What you're doing is amazing, and you should feel wonderful about that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.